Guys, today is the day.
If you haven't already seen it, Brad and I battled it out in a competition for 10 grand, and well, I lost.
Yeah, you did, which means that I've got all the money to buy a cheap sports car for the channel. A car we're gonna use for things like, does an aftermarket air filter actually add horsepower to your car?
Yeah, or like, how much of a measurable difference does upgraded suspension make in corner and grip?
From showing you how to properly inspect and maintain your car, to diving deep into the world of mods. Let's just say we got some big plans cooking.
Now, there are literally dozens of cars we've been considering, but we've narrowed it down to the top 5, starting with the Toyota 86. Yeah, the 86 is an awesome car. Every single one of these is actually produced by Fuji Heavy Industries. They're really Subarus through and through. Toyota helped with some of the development stuff, especially like the fuel injection system.
Yes, one of my absolute favorites. I mean, the FRS BRZ 86 platform, if I'm honest, ranks super high on this list. You get 200 horsepower out of a direct injected Boxer 4, a fucking killer feeling manual transmission, rear-wheel drive the way God intended, and one of the most playful and balanced chassis that I've ever driven.
Okay, so those are some of the pros. These cars have been around a while. They're very well developed. Aftermarket parts community is huge. They've been raced, they've been modded, they've been drifted. Anything you want to do with an FRS or a BRZ is possible. And parts don't break the bank. For the cons though, and you're gonna hate me when I say this, but flat for reliability.
Now, Trav, I gotta say that fellow YouTuber Scotty Kilmer would say this is an ideal pick, and nothing else on this list is worth even mentioning. I mean, dude, you can get it with a manual. It's a Toyota that's kind of disguised as a Subaru, which is kind of cool because you get the reliability of a Toyota, but you get that really cool sound that Subarus make.
I mean, the FA20 is historically pretty good. There was the whole recall thing that happened, which we can talk about, but I think it's more robust than previous Subaru engines.
I never thought about it that way, but it does kind of look like a mini Supra, which is pretty cool. It hits way harder than the price would dictate. It sounds like we should make a video on this.
I think we have.
I think we should.
That being said, I think they're a little bit underpowered.
That is true. I mean, it is like a Lego set. It's pretty easy to put together and modify it to your wildest dreams.
And unfortunately, you're gonna have to do some pretty major internal upgrades to go make big power.
Yeah, I'm with you. I know that Subarus on the internet haven't done so hot, and I know those are flat 4s as well, so. Are we asking for pain? First up is that FRS, and there actually one was sold for $8,500, which is a fantastic deal. But if we take a look at it, this thing has XP86 on it, which means it adds 5 horsepower. Now, actually, this thing was a full race car with limited history, so obviously it went for not very much. Here's another one that recently sold for $13,686. Awesome bid price. And so it might be tough to get one for under 10 grand, but I do think it's doable. Hey, Trav, I think I know a guy.
The 350Z is an absolute tuner legend. 287 naturally aspirated horsepower. Rear-wheel drive, manual transmission option. What's not to love?
Well, if there's nothing not to love, dude, hit me with the stuff that you love about it.
Okay, well, first off, that VQ35 engine, it's powerful, it's reliable, and I think it sounds amazing.
You know, Trev, I took trumpet in 5th grade, and I have to think that my skills as a beginner were just as good as an aftermarket exhaust on a VQ. But that's just what I'm saying.
I guess it comes down to preference. I think it sounds good. Some of the internet would agree. Probably more of the internet would agree with you, though.
It's a distinguished sound. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing, but it is what it is.
Next pro, though, it's a Z. The Z is one of the most influential and important sports cars of all time. And while the 350Z doesn't really have any design language shared with any of the older ones, I still think it looks really good.
Yeah, but if you didn't have a $10,000 budget for a sports car, would this gen be the one that you'd be looking at, or would you be looking at a newer one or an older one?
Probably a 370. Probably. I don't know. The first Z or a 300ZX would be really cool, but I don't know that I want that mechanical nightmare. Probably a first Z, but they're just so old. That'd be a hard car to use every single day.
Yeah, and I think the 370 really looks 10 years newer, even though it's only a couple years newer than the 350. But the 350 platform is a great platform if you're just looking at it from, you're going to start here and we're going to build it into something cool on the channel. So I'm with you on the 350. I think they're cool, but curb appeal, I don't know if this one looks nearly as good as the FRS.
Also, there's the practicality factor, because while the rear seats of an FRS are basically non-existent, they are technically there. You can actually use them. In the 350, it's a bigger car that you can put less stuff in, so something to consider.
Now, there's really three things I don't love about this 350Z. One is the VQ engine. I'm just not a huge fan. I think my trumpet skills are better. Two, it doesn't come with rear seats, so how am I gonna fit all my friends in the car?
Dude, I am your only friend.
Yeah, but without rear seats, insurance is gonna be more. And third, synchros tend to go out on these. They're driven hard, put away wet. Of course, they're Zs, right? They're essentially drift cars. So I would be hard pressed to think that we can find one for under 10 grand that actually has not been driven too hard and we can start with a good platform.
I bet we could find one. I think a Z would be a ton of fun. Let's do it.
Okay.
350Z. Now, there's only been a couple that have sold. This one right here for $4,600 did not, but I wonder why it was so cheap. Then you got this one right here for $13,400. So unfortunately, I think these are going to be a little bit too expensive to get for under 10.
Well, hear me out, because the third pick and one of my secret crushes is the NC Miata. Now, we all know the Miata is always the answer, which kind of makes us not want to do this car. The Miata, like the last two picks, is a front engine rear drive sports car that offers a manual transmission. And while it's possible to get a 350 as a convertible, the Miata, well, that's the only way that they came. I don't know about you, Trav, but I could totally be okay with some topless motoring.
Somehow that doesn't surprise me.
So the one thing that sells me on this Miata is four little letters. PRHT, Power Roof Hard Top. If you take a look at this, it kind of looks like a mini S2K, more than a hairdresser car at least.
I gotta stop you right there. The S2K is a hairdresser's car. Okay, I'm just kidding. S2Ks are awesome.
Yeah, I think S2Ks are cool, and it would be on this list, but they're just too expensive. Now, with the Club Edition, you do get an LSD, which is really cool.
Kind of shocking these didn't all come with limited slips.
Yeah, I mean, but at a price point, right, you kind of have to decide what you're going to put in it and what you're not. So it's an upper trim. And the cool thing about the NC compared to the ND, which both you and I have driven extensively, the NC feels like an older Miata, where the ND really feels like a new Zoom Zoom.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot to like about that NC. I think a lot of people sort of passed it off as like this heavy, big, bloated version of the Miata that was never as true to what it was supposed to be. But I think if you actually put some seat time in one, you'll find it's much different. I really like the way the NC drives.
And lastly, dude, it's a Miata. It's always the answer. I mean, it's kind of easy to pick, but at the same time, what's easy is kind of hard to pick as well.
Okay, so for some cons, they're not particularly fast, but they are quicker than you might think. 0 to 60 is about on par with an FRS. And if you've never driven either, while the internet will tell you both are kind of slow cars, it's not exactly true.
Yeah, but they are momentum cars, and the gearing does make them feel kind of fast, but it's a lot more fun when it's an apex killer, which that's what Miatas are for.
Owning one of these cars will teach you how to drive a car quickly, because you can't slow down too much and go through a corner. You have to learn to be smooth.
Mm-hmm. Which we all know that I'm way more smooth than you.
With all that said, I still think these cars need more power.
Agreed, but that's something that we can do once we buy one.
Miata. Here is a bunch of them under 10 grand. Now, of course, the Club Sport's the one you want to get, but look at this, you guys. $74.99 with 89,000 miles. And it sold during peak pandemic. So all these puppies down here sold for under 10, and I think you can easily find one.
Lastly, and it's not fair, but Miatas have kind of a stigma.
Oh, do they now? Yeah, they do. So we should move on.
Look, I know we've been down this road dozens of times, but there's a good reason why.
Yeah, I'm just going to stop you right there. I know this is your pick, but I feel like this is kind of a mutual pick. We're both kind of in for this car.
The E36 M3 was crowned as one of the best handling cars of the 90s. And you just can't go wrong with an inline six.
Wow. Okay, now you got my blood boiling. I'm excited. I'm excited.
Now, we both have a pretty big soft spot for old German cars. And I think finding an old M3 that's a little rough around the edges would be a perfect platform to build on the channel. An ideal platform, even.
Okay, so sell me on an E36 M3, Trav. I know we both owned them, but tell me why.
Right out of the gate, literally one of the best handling cars in the 90s. It won Car and Driver's Handling Comparison Shootout that included cars like the Mark IV Supra, Acura NSX, Dodge Viper, Porsche 911, Chevrolet Corvette, and even the Ferrari 355.
Isn't that poster like one of the most iconic posters, especially for Beamer heads like us?
Yeah, I love it.
It is cool.
But it's true, it actually did do it.
Oh, I know. I know. That's what's crazy. I mean, for 10,000 bucks, I don't think you can get a better handling car out of the box.
Also, this car set the stage for what all M cars would be moving forward. Because while the E30 M3 is largely regarded by all of us enthusiasts as sort of peak BMW M3, BMW couldn't sell them. No one wanted them. So when they reinvented the formula and gave us a road car with a high level of performance compared to a race car that could be used on the road, it transformed what BMW M meant for people like you and me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right.
You can get it in a sedan, a coupe, or a convertible. Parts are plentiful and cheap, and they're super easy to work on.
Now, one thing that I hate about the E36 M3, out of every other generation, it's the only one that shared every body panel with the regular pedestrian 3 Series. E30 had bigger fenders, E46 was 80% new, E9X, F80, G80. I mean, it's one thing that when you see it going down the road, really only the few that know the difference actually know what they're even looking at.
Yeah, which can be a pro or a con, I guess, depending on how you look at it. The fact that M3s that came after had like completely different subframes and stuff is just really cool.
Well, and they had completely different motors. This is a watered down motor. I mean, it's not a real M motor.
Well, except it kind of is. Well, it's not the same engine that we got in Europe, but in a straight up drag race, it's like 0.2 seconds off the real European M3. And cost to keep this one on the road is like less than half.
That is true, but the European version had almost 100 more horsepower. It had like 330 horse, which this one has 240. So I don't know. It's just a watered down M experience.
More horsepower, but way less torque.
Now, the other thing, you know that those interiors do not hold up well. And now being, what, 20 years old?
Those cars started self-recycling like right after they came off the assembly line. The interiors are not great.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
They're beautifully designed. They're just not put together with them. They're not awesome.
And they love to overheat.
And yeah, BMW cooling systems, but it's not that big of a deal to fix. Parts have all been updated, they're still readily available, they're not that expensive. There are solutions to keep coolant in your BMW, mostly.
Which, this just got me thinking, this is the only German pick that we have for under 10 grand. That's kind of crazy.
Last con though, they are old. Like, they're just old cars, which means subframe bushings, anything rubber on the car is gonna need to be replaced at some point. And a lot of these have like over 200,000 miles on them now. It's an old car. You got to put up with old car stuff. Window regulators that fail, door latches that go wrong, seals and gaskets that are constantly shrinking and leaking. And that's not necessarily a bad thing or reason enough alone not to buy one. It's just something you have to remember. They're old cars, so they have old car problems.
You know, I have that same problem getting out of bed every day.
Holy Batman, that is a lot of E36 M3s that have sold over the last few years. And as you can see here, there have been, well, a decent amount that have been around that $10,000 mark. So if you look long and hard, you will be able to find an E36 M3 that's rated M for under 10.
Listen, I have always wanted a Mustang Cobra. And the SN95 with its hand-built 4.6-liter modular V8, aka the Romeo engine, ticks all the right boxes for me. It was the first production Mustang built with independent rear suspension, and maybe it's because I'm a 90s kid, but something about the way these cars are styled, especially in Cobra trim, just sings to me.
Romeo engine?
Yeah, they were cast by the same company that built Ferrari engines. I mean, that's pretty sweet, but I'm gonna hold you right there, dude, because one word, Mystic.
Mistachrome? Dude, that color is so sick.
And can we just take a second to appreciate, it's one of, if not the coolest paint colors in all of history.
And some of them, it might have been all of them, some of them also had the Mystic colored seat centers. They color matched the centers of the seats. So it's like that same blue, green, purple effect going on even on the seats, which I just think is cool. I'm a nerd though, I like stuff like that.
I'm sure they look great after 20 years of wear.
Yeah, I'm sure they've held up wonderfully. Ford knows how to make something that lasts. You know what I mean? That's what they're known for.
Now, one of the problems with that type of paint is the fact that if you ever hit something and you have to get it resprayed, it is so hard to color match.
Hard to color match, and it's really expensive. So there used to be rumors that like if you ever had to respray the car, some like dude from Ford would like bring the paint on an airplane and like only let you use what you needed. That's not really the case. You can get the color. The problem is it's like insane expensive. It's like over $1,000 per pint or something like that.
Now, the one issue is Mystic is probably going to be out of our budget, so let's talk more about the platform, the SN95, the redheaded stepchild of Mustangs, essentially. And one of the things I love is the sweet, sweet sound of that engine. And at the time, it was brand new. It had only 15 less horsepower than a Mark IV Turbo Supra, and it cost $15,000 less. So it's a bargain, and it still is today.
It was 15 grand less, and it's not exactly hard to see where they saved the money.
Oh man, come on.
Look, dude, I like the car. That floating Mustang emblem in the front grille is iconic. I've also secretly kind of always wanted one of these, but let's be real. It was basically a rush job facelift of the Ford Fox body, which is a car that I can't stand.
That's why it's not on this list.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't.
That is true. Those 5 liters will bolt directly into a Fox body, except this one, a 96 or newer, 96 to 98, is a modular 4.6 liter. So it's a pretty special engine. It's been touched by SVT. I mean, you get suspension, you get brakes, and you get a bunch of aesthetic bits that really set it off over the GT and lower flavors.
And SVT really did go all out with this thing. Different suspension, different brakes, independent rear suspension, which was like unheard of for American muscle cars.
I mean, yeah, it's a cool car.
And it came out at a time where it was like all the muscle cars were dead. Camaro had just been canceled. The last thing Mopar made was probably like the Charger in the late 80s. The muscle car was dying. When Ford came out with this thing, it was like this resurgence, this like ray of hope that American muscle was sticking around.
Plus you get a manual transmission. I mean, you get a bunch of aftermarket support. I mean, because it's a Mustang.
For the cons. Underneath it all, it's still basically a Fox body. And if you think the guts of an E36 are bad, just wait till you sit in one of these.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a lazy boy inside, which isn't great.
There's just slabs of cheap plastic absolutely everywhere, which is kind of the aesthetic, I guess. Even with independent rear suspension, they're not particularly great handling cars. They're better than you'd think, though.
Shut up, dude. It's kind of sick.
I mean, look, the whole car has relatively low build quality, which is part of what comes with the territory when you price a car like they were when they were new.
Fix or repair daily. That's what Ford stands for.
Again, a lot of Cobras and a lot of years, and the ones that are under 10, unfortunately, are mostly drop tops, which unfortunately isn't exactly what I want in a Mustang. I think the coupes are way more better looking, but hey, you can still find them from under 10, and if you want to go soft top muscle car, it's an ideal pick.
Man, I think I have my mind made up, but I also want to hear from you guys on what you guys would pick. Is it one of these 5 that Trav and I were looking at, or is it something completely different? Remember, we only have $10,000 to spend, so you could look for something 11 or 12,000 bucks because we'll negotiate it down. But what's the ideal car that you want to see on the channel for us to build into something really cool?
Dude, just buy the BMW.
Bro, I won, so it's my decision. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, turn on that notification bell, and we will be revealing what we picked in a video coming real soon, so stay tuned. Also, check out some of these ideal vids. I'm Brad, Financial Cowboy. That's Trav. This is Ideal, and promise me one thing. Keep living the ideal lifestyle.